Hi there, everybody. I'm Fred Thomas, and you are watching All Things Bike, brought to you by Zentis Wheels, AD Bikes, and Frame and Wheel. And today, we are speaking with Tyler Kidder of the Bicycle Coalition of Maine. Tyler, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming down.
Thanks for having me.
We are going to talk about the bike swap. You run the bike swap, you're involved in it. You had a very busy weekend, I think, last weekend. Tell us, how did it go?
Yeah, so I actually got involved with the coalition first through the bike swap.
Oh, okay.
Before I have the job that I have now, I was the sustainability officer at the University of Southern Maine, which is the venue of the bike swap. So the first year I worked there, I got involved, and then the swap has really changed a lot since then, and that was 7 years ago.
Wow.
So we just had the swap a couple weekends ago. It was a great success. It's always such a fun day. And this year, as you know, we also had really great weather, which
totally unusual.
Adds to the smiles.
I thought something was wrong.
And made the logistics much smoother. If there's, the risk of bad weather, sometimes it causes excitement.
Yeah, well, it just keeps people in. If it's cold and wet,
it does.
People are just going to do something else. But
right.
It was not. It was warm and dry, and there seemed to be a lot of people there. Was it bigger, the same size as last year?
Yeah, trending around the same as last year. Mm-hmm. We've seen, in the history of the Portland bike swap, there's been a lot of increase in shop swaps. So local bike shops having their own bicycle swaps, because it's like really popular. Bicycling is growing, and access to used bikes. People really want something affordable. They want to get started. They want something vintage or cool. So we're trending just fine, but I think we're also seeing more competition from local bike shop swaps, which is great because it just means that the whole thing is growing, which is what we want.
Right. But it's a lot of work to put one on. I think a lot of bike shops must say, hey, yeah, we'll do that too. And then they suddenly realize that you've got to get the bikes in, then you got to check them out, and then people come in, and there's a lot of friction.
It is a huge logistical undertaking.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that for a little bit. I mean, tell us some of the challenges and the nuts and bolts that go on to this thing.
Well, I have a couple numbers written down. So this year we had 810 bikes for sale.
Wow.
And I think we've had up to 1,000 in a given year. So one of the logistical challenges is where to hold the swap. And we've had it at the Portland USM campus in the gym, which has worked out great, but it's a finite space. Wow. And a couple years ago, we made the decision to move kids' bikes outside, which really is weather dependent, but it frees up a lot of space inside. We also made the decision to move bargain bicycles. So those bikes under $50 outside as well. So you can shop for kids' bikes and bargain bikes for free. You don't pay the admission fee.
Oh, good. Yeah, right.
So one of the biggest amounts of time is always setting up all the racks, putting all the bicycles on the racks, rearranging them, make sure they fit. We're really wary and careful about number of people in the gym at any time. There are also a lot of people, everybody, triples in size because they have one bike or two bikes, or they've got a stroller or a kid or a partner. And so there's these clumps of humans with very unwieldy equipment they're carrying around. So space is always a huge logistic to consider. But we've found that we really wanted to keep it walkable and bikeable. So having it at USM and as close to the peninsula as possible has been a priority. So we've kept it there for many years now. And the other, there's just so much challenge around accepting money for things.
Oh, right, yeah.
So you have to have cash handling. We now have this whole electronic checkout system, check-in system. We take credit cards. So there's a lot of back of house kind of financial logistics. Do we have all of our little gadgets to run the credit cards? And that's all just to improve the customer experience, because the quicker we can get people in and out and the more flexible we are with terms of payment, then
the better it is.
Everybody can move through a little bit quicker.
That's right. Because it really is. It opens at 10, but people start lining up at 8.
They do.
And then I've never been in. I'm always there outside at the table, but I've always imagined it as a pretty frantic event, and people dash around, they look, and then they find, and then they want to test it out, and then they want to transact. What are the systems you're using?
Yeah,
How
so
do you
last
control?
year we started batching people in batches of 200 or 250, which really helped make it feel like less of a crush, because there was some people get anxiety, and then they want to hold 3 bikes because they're afraid somebody's going to make off with one of them and they can't make up their mind. So we batch people in, which has worked great and gives just a breather. Inside is less crowded. By the time some people have filtered out either into the test ride area outside or they've moved into the purchase line, there's more space for other people to come in and shop. So that's been great. And we just try and do a lot more outreach before and during the event than we used to. So we send swap seller guides and swap buyer guides out in advance. We do trainings with our volunteers. We do a lot of really intentional messaging around the event itself to set everybody's expectations, because it is a yard sale for bikes, right? You want a bargain. You come because this is the best selection, the largest selection of used bikes all in one place, as opposed to shopping on Craigslist for a whole summer and maybe finding nothing and not knowing what you're getting. This is like a great one-stop shop. So we try and, you may or may not find exactly what you're looking for because we can't control the inventory. But we're going to do our best to make sure that you have the information you need if you want to find it, and that you have success finding what you need.
Or success selling what you want to sell. I mean,
Absolutely.
There's always that great big disconnect where the person comes in and says, this bike is fantastic, it's this, it's that, and
the price.
And then does the seller set the price? Yeah,
so that is actually one of the things I was thinking about that has remained a challenge for us. So the Bike Coalition is the co-host of the event, or the host of the event. We host it at USM. They're sort of a host partner. And then there's a committee of volunteers. And so we meet throughout the year in advance of the swap to think through what happened last year and to plan for this year and to make adjustments. And one of our just really nagging challenges is that it is a consignment opportunity. So sellers bring whatever's in their basement, and they may or may not have a firm idea of how much it is worth, or the value of it, or the safety of it, or the condition of it. And at the same time, we have a lot of first-time bike buyers who come to this event. They learn about it, they're excited about it. They come, but they don't know what's a good value. They don't know how to fit things. They don't necessarily know what they need or what they're looking for. And they don't necessarily understand how much they can outfit a bike to meet their needs. So maybe they want a commuter bike, but they end up with a road bike that you can't attach a rack to, and they just don't know, because they don't know. They don't. How would they know? So there is this big knowledge gap between we as the host don't have the ability to change the prices because the seller sets the prices. And we also don't have the ability to interact with every single customer on the sales floor, which we do. We put a fleet of volunteers out there. But it is still a challenge to get the right people in the room, right? You need the right bikes to be sold, and you need the right person for each of those bikes to come and look for a bike and find it and then buy it. And sometimes we find this disconnect of like, well, they don't like the look of it, or it's too expensive, or they can't find a bike that fits them, and it's a little bit out of our control. We just try and boost the inventory, get as many bicycles on the floor so that more people can match up with what they're looking for.
But the volunteers there's some volunteers that are going around the floor and helping people learn about, or basically doing a sales role, I thought, because someone might come in saying, well, I need a commuter bike, and they might be looking at a fat bike and saying, well, this will do, but that may not be the right appropriate.
We call them bike fit advisors, because it's all meanings of the word fit. So does it literally fit you size-wise, but also features and weight. Is it too heavy? If you're not a strong bicyclist yet and you buy some beach cruiser and you try and ride it up a hill in Portland, you're gonna be disappointed pretty fast. So there's a lot of expectations we try and manage on the seller or the buyer. Everybody, we're trying to match make
but it's
actively.
People keep coming back, so most people are are happy with what they end up with. Now you had a statistic about how the value of all the transactions that occurred.
So we just wrote up the numbers from this year. The staff of the Bicycle Coalition just wrote up the numbers. I didn't, and they sent them to me.
Good job, guys.
And they've estimated about $110,000 earned back for the sellers from the sales of their bike. So again, it's consignment.
Right.
So if you bring in a bicycle and you price it at $200 and it sells, you pay $5 to just get it into the swap. And then the Bicycle Coalition of Maine takes a commission of 15% off, which just allows us to put on the event every year and acts as a fundraiser for us as a nonprofit. So then you get a check in the mail 2 weeks later for your, 15% off of $200 for your sale of your bike. And actually, there's a lot of folks that are hobbyists and do, bring in 5 to 20 bikes every year. There's shops that get rid of
trailers full of bikes.
There's a couple of local shops, the Community Bicycle Center in Biddeford, as well as the Gear Hub, which use volunteer labor and educational settings to fix up old bicycles. And then the swap is a huge deal for them every year. But there's also places that have rental fleets, so they'll sell off 10 rental bikes of all sizes, and those.
So you're reaching more than just the individual who wants to get a bike for commuting. It's the corporations or the bike shops, and then the organizations that have cycling at their soul. And that's great, and it helps the economy, I suppose.
Yes, it does. And I think there's actually a woman. So I work the whole weekend. So I'm there for bike check-in, I'm there for the setup, and then I'm there for the sale, and then the cleanup at the end. So if your bike doesn't sell, you come back Sunday afternoon and you pick it up. So there's a window of time after the swap. And if you don't care, you can donate it to the Bike Coalition, and we'll put it to good use. And actually, a lot of bicycles that get donated go back to the Gear Hub or the Bicycle Community Bike Center in Biddeford to just go back and feed their programs. And so there was a woman who came up, and she actually has come up for the last 3 or 4 years from Long Island, New York. And she fixes up 20 to 25 bikes a year, rents a trailer, and comes up, and she says it makes it worth her while, because she always sells 75% or more of her bicycles, and she sells them because she prices them well.
Right, exactly.
And she knows what she has, and she's not going to try and sell some funny high-end bicycle, because that's not necessarily the clientele that comes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Is there any other bike swap in the region that is at this level of organization?
I think ours is the largest. There are other bike swaps around the country, but ours is a model that we have talked about sharing at conferences and things. I don't think we've actually gotten that point yet, but and the swaps that are run by the local bike shops, what's nice about them is they're a little bit more geographically diverse. There's one up in Brunswick, there's one in Saco. Those are put on by Gorham Bike and Ski, but each of those are a little bit smaller. So they'll have a range of bicycles. They just won't have the number of bicycles.
Right. Well, who are there are other organizations that are involved. You have vendors and you have sponsors. Talk about them for a bit.
We have some great sponsors who I should know off the top of my head, but don't.
Oh, well, there was a coffee company.
Yes.
And is that a new direction?
Yeah. So we the swap has changed so much in its years, more than a decade. My involvement over the last 7 years has seen a lot of change. One of the changes is we used to have a student group inside doing food sales as a fundraiser for themselves. And we've now moved it to there's a coffee truck. We've had a donut and a cupcake truck in the past. So that is a new element, and it works great on those sunny days.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And we have other sponsors, banks, local gear companies, beer companies. A lot of folks want to be involved, and we give out T-shirts every year.
Yeah, so it's a very community-oriented thing. How can someone volunteer for next year? So I mean, it's happening next year. How do we volunteer?
Every spring, early in the spring. So the bike swaps are usually in April. There is, a link goes up on the Bike Coalition's website, and if you get the Bike Coalition's email newsletter, which you can sign up for on their website, you'll get a request to volunteer. And we have 150 volunteers or more.
Really? Each year? Wow.
Yes. I think this year we have 159. No, we have 195. 195, almost 200 volunteers.
Right.
What keeps people coming back is when you volunteer, whether you volunteer on Saturday or Sunday, you get access to the bicycles first.
I see. Yep.
There's a volunteer shop on Saturday night. After 80% of the bikes have checked in. So we now do pre-registration where people mostly bring their bicycles on Saturday. There's a few more that roll in Sunday morning before the swap, but Saturday night, volunteers have an hour to shop and buy bicycles without the crush of the hundreds of other people. So this year we had 1,500 attendees.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a busy day.
Yeah, that's great. And no, it's a fantastic thing. I mean, it's
so many smiles. Yeah. It's like just everybody smiling.
Any other innovations or new directions that are planned? I mean, will it always be in Portland, or
I think we'll always keep it in Portland. For a long time, we also did a swap in Orono at the Orono campus, and this year we suspended it. We might restart it. But just really trying to find an event for the Orono and Bangor region that really serves them. We weren't sure it was the bike swap. The bike swap is very volunteer intensive, very time intensive for staff of the coalition. And the Orono swap never really got the mass sort of the groundswell that the Portland one did. Yeah. So we might start that one back up again. But right now, I think Portland has just shown that it's got the density and the market. And now it's such a tradition that people look forward to it every year.
Right. Well, did you buy a bike at the bike swap?
I did.
Oh, nice.
I was
what did you
not
get?
supposed to.
Oh, really? Well, the volunteers can. Right?
Yes, it's just when you buy a bike every year at the bike swap, you end up with too many bikes. Oh, but I also sold a bike, so I'm at net neutral here. I ended up buying my first trail bike, so it's a specialized rock hopper for mountain biking.
Nice.
And it's it's a couple years old, but it has suspension on the front, and it's all in nice shape, disc brakes. So I thought, if I'm gonna ever ride off of a road, I need a tool to do it, and this is a good one to try it out.
And then you can also obtain helmets and a lot of the other gear that's available outside of the swap. I mean, there are plenty of people, so you can emerge from this whole experience ready to ride.
Absolutely, and we'd like to stay in touch with people who buy bikes, especially if they're interested in doing, more education or getting more involved with bike events, other rides, or advocacy, or becoming a community spoke, which is our trained program for bike advocates nested out in their communities doing good work. So there's a great opportunity to get more involved after the bike swap, whether you volunteer or you just want to learn more about your bike and you want to get more involved in the bike scene. There's a great bike scene in Portland and beyond.
That's right, and the Bicycle Coalition of Maine is doing a great job of raising the profile of bikes and the community, and anything we should know that's on the horizon with Bicycle Coalition of Maine? Or?
Well, we've got great events, great traditions all summer long. So the Women's Ride is coming up in early June. I believe it's June 4th, and that happens in Freeport and is 500 plus women all just riding. It's not a race, it's a ride.
Yeah, and it's a long one too, isn't it?
You can do 10, 25, 50 miles, I think. And we encourage people to do it with their daughters or with their neighbors on any bike, any woman. That's a great event. And then we, of course, have our lighthouse. Well, it's not our lighthouse ride. That's embarrassing. That's someone else's ride. Oops. It's our lobster ride in Rockland in July. There's also a lighthouse ride that happens in South Portland and Cape Elizabeth. So the lobster ride's a great event. Always gets more than 1,000 riders, and it's been just an epic beautiful course right along the coast. And so those are great. And then what I love about the swap is it's our event, our sort of signature event that is very accessible. So if you've never ridden a bike before, or if you only have $50 and you can find something at the swap. And I think the Bike Coalition is committed to accessibility and equity, and really working on keeping the swap that kind of cool, low barrier to entry. Everybody is invited. It's a big party. Yeah, no, you're doing a great job. It really is all those things. And thank you so much for putting it on. And we will see you there in next year in April 2018. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tyler, for coming down and telling us about the bike swap. Wonderful. All right, everybody, that was Tyler Kidder of the Bicycle Coalition of Maine
Don't forget about the bike swap, which is about a year off, but it's never too early to start planning. You can learn more about the bike swap and the Bicycle Coalition of Maine at their website, on Facebook. That's all we've got time for right now. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you again soon.
All Things Bike with Fred Thomas is brought to you by Zentis, performance carbon wheels handmade in Austria for road and off-road riding. Zentis, next generation wheels. And Frame and Wheel eBay bike selling services. Time, space, cash. Pick 3. And AD Bikes, the modern face of Austro-Daimler cycling and the bike company of the future.